So I think what's been going on for me the most right now is the kind of dissociation, disassociation that happens when we get stuck in, I guess, a reality that is sort of governed by our fears and by our insecurities and our ideas about ourselves that have not necessarily been validated by anything external or by maybe anything at all other than some concept or some belief system that we ingrained or adopted at some point in our lives. And how when you get really stuck in that cycle, it's like it is this inner battle. It is this whole way, like there's this whole way in which we work ourselves up and beat ourselves up and kind of anticipate the worst out of any situation or any interaction because we feed into that. And like for me personally, it brings in a sort of like mania where it's like how I feel all of these things. It's like my conditioning or my programming, and it's like ancestral. It's in my family line. It's like I have that and have adopted the lack of self-love and the affinity towards illusion and the affinity towards seeing myself as something not enough or not whatever it is, whatever I choose to define it as. And so this mania, I feel like, comes from that spirit aspect of self or that other aspect of yourself that's aware of you going through this and is like freaking out because there's the battle, right, with this programming or this conditioning and this collective like kind of egregore of energy that we get into and that we it's like a sort of helplessness aspect comes from because we do have free will. And that's the other part, is like our spirit is there and we can tune into our spirit, but we also have the free will and we also have the control of the program that we're running in. And so then if you're caught in that mind web and you're caught in that construct of believing, at least even as unrealistic as it is, believing in this stuff, then the mania comes when it's like something is trying to get through, but the program is like battling it just as strongly. And so, maybe it comes down to submission, or it comes down to a sort of repetitive cycle where you act upon your programming, you fall into your depression, you wallow, you don't know what to do, you're helpless, you're trying to figure out what's wrong with you. But then there's this other part of you that's like, there's nothing wrong with you, and you can call it ascension or you can call it waking up. But in that other place, it's like you are waking up. So all of this stuff is like getting joggled around together. And that's part of that polarity in life, right? That's part of it. And I realize, I get so caught up in like how I'm feeling about myself and how scared I am to express myself and how scared I am to get into what I'm going through. And then, there's this whole process that happens as I work into spending time with them, or I work into an interaction or an event or doing something, creating something, whatever. And I have to like talk myself into it, almost like this mental game that I have to play in order to get out of and get over the conditioning that I have, which initiates and ignites this fear and this, autopilot way of being and feeling about myself. And then once that happens, there's this whole like revelatory process that comes up through going through that experience and through interacting with whatever scenario or whatever project or whatever it is, where I'm like, wow, and so there's this bafflement that comes then, because then you're kind of disillusioned from the belief systems and the ideas and the constructs and the conditioning and programming that you have about yourself. And so you kind of go, wait a second, and then it can get more confusing, because then not only are you sort of like get right in the potential for being devastated, or kind of being like taken aback by the fact that your beliefs are not real at all, but they run you, and so then there's a confusion that happens. And then, again with the cycle, kind of, for me, it just keeps happening. But it's like there's also, in this game, or in this kind of like process of itself, there's learning, and even if the learning doesn't seem like it's changing or transitioning at all, it seems sort of repetitive, there's a learning that happens. And, you can say it's insanity to go over and over again in these circles, but then it's also like, well, how long are you going to be able to continue to go in these cycles and follow this repetition of like believing these things and then getting, trying to reach out and get out of the things that you believe, and then getting pushed back into them and pushed back into another layer of them, in a sense, where it's really tricky if it's the mind or the ego or the program itself is able to kind of shift itself into whatever you've just experienced that kind of has denoted its validity. But then also your enlightenment or your realization of the fact that these things are not real, are not true about you, can kind of develop different layers and different understanding each time the process happens. So like as I'm right now hermiting out and like taking this point to just like get through it and face it, I'm finding isolation, avoidance, repetition, and I'm really like, I have nothing that is stopping me from going through and observing myself as I go through all of this. And it's so apparent that it's part of that. And then as I do interact with others, or as as time moves itself through, and I find people are in the same place, more or less. People are going through the same thing, and so there's this idea with the belief system, or the ways in which we think we are in our conditioning that we have adopted, that kind of like isolates us even more. So where we think that we can't relate to others in the state that we're in, when actually what we need to do is talk about it, is express it, and is relate to them, because ultimately we all struggle, and the vulnerability and the absolute genuineness of expressing that struggle that you go through is something that is needed, really needed, because it's not about advertising some state of happiness or ultimatum or positivity or beauty or whatever in life, because that's not all-encompassing. That's another aspect of the programming that's going to inevitably bring more doubt and more unfulfillment and more negativity. So it's like, I guess what I'm feeling, and it's really strange because with not having anything to do right now, and with my current state or place, which, could sound lazy, or could sound unproductive, or that I'm not fulfilling my life goal or fulfilling my life purpose, and then that brings more depression, and that brings again the isolation and the comparisons and the looking into things and going, well, why do I feel like there's something that I'm supposed to do, or why do I feel like there's someone I'm supposed to be, or why do I feel like I have some great lofty mission, when like reality continues to kind of defeat me and go, well, whatever it is you think you're going to be, or you think you're going to be doing, isn't going to happen, because you continue to just go through these experiences. And then there's this other part of me that goes, well, wait a second, perhaps it's this that is the mission. It's not based on, healing the planet, healing other people, making a business, becoming an entrepreneur, spreading the word, or becoming some teacher. It's this process of itself, this experience, and this presence in it, I guess, without any ultimatum in the exterior, or I don't know. The externals are valid because the embracing of it, I think, is the mission. It's not, oh, how do I market what I'm going through, or how do I everyone I know, so many people, they want to be fulfilled, and they want to fulfill others, and they want to help others, but it always comes down to, well, like, how do I make a living? If I don't want, like, a normal job, I don't want to go to school, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do that, I don't want to do something that I don't love, but what I love is helping people, what I love is sharing about myself, or sharing my experience, or expressing my uniqueness into the world. It should be just that in itself. It's not a means to it's not a way in which we kind of it's collaboration with the programming, but it's not included. I don't know. It's like there's no point to what I'm saying, but I'm saying it. And I believe, like, through all the insecurity and all of the fear and all of the pressure, almost, like, there's this constant pressure. It's almost like the constant pressure of the battle, or, and if it's a battle, but it's like of its polarity. I think that's the best way that I can explain it, is it's that extreme from one spectrum and the other that are kind of trying to, like, find a way how to unite, but in that union, or in that pull toward union, living in a reality that is not united, that has the extremes and that has the opposites, and always is in polarity. It's it's not very easily comprehensible by the mind. And, even when we comprehend it and we speak about it, or we kind of try to philosophize and, like, understand it from an intellectual or sensory sort of state, it's still kind of, doesn't reach that place, that point, that spectrum, or whatever, in which it's trying, I don't know. But that's what it is, and it's not, wrong, and it's not like this battle is something that needs to be avoided, or needs to be fixed or stopped, because it's happening, and that's part of that happenstance, and I think that's one of the things I find the most irritating about a lot of teachings, is, like, it's always about finding the light, and finding the bliss, and finding that state of nirvana, or that enlightened state where, everything is Eden, everything is heaven, everything is beautiful, but that's not being human. And that's just another state of Maya, that's just another state of illusion. And then I go, but I do, and then in my head I go and I compare that, and I'm going, well, like, alright, what's wrong with me? Why am I so sad? Why am I so upset? Why is, like, why is there this battle going on within me? Why are there these energies and these feelings and then these thoughts and then these, like, realistic things that happen in the external that are not adding up, that are not coming together, that are not making sense based on this idea, this program, or this construct that I have? And so then, hence, the growth and the period in which, like, that might not be easy, but we have to kind of figure out how to flow with that, or how to redefine ourselves, or how to reinvent what is believed to be true, or what is believed to be false, and what reality itself even is. And so there's all of that. And it is what, but then it's back to that again. It's like there's always something, it's like it's what we're supposed to do. It's what's meant to be done. It's like this thing and this and maybe that's that control on that mind and stuff. It's like, well, this is how things are, but blah blah blah, this is how they should be, and this is how they're going to be, and this is what they do. And then it brings even more confusion, because it's like, well, the second you kind of define something, or the second you kind of realize that something is a certain way, it's not that way anymore. And that's kind of the nature of this transition, maybe. I don't know. But that is my little rant. That's my little expression of the fact that right now, there's a struggle, I think, and for a lot of people, to kind of grasp who they are and what they're supposed to be doing in a culture where what you were supposed to do isn't really making sense anymore, or isn't really up to par, so to speak, with the time-based evolution of our species, or whatever. But embracing everything, I guess, and like understanding, that we get such a